This is the occipital lobe. This is the frontal lobe. This is parietal lobe. And this is the temporal lobe. Inside all the lobes, there's the insula. That's another lobe. The puff up part of the brain, we call it gyrus. And the space between the gyrus are the sulcus. It's a very important sulcus, which is right here. That is the central sulcus. And the gyrus that is in front of the sulcus, we call it pre-central gyrus. And the one that is after the central sulcus, we call it post-central gyrus. The fissure between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere is a longitudinal fissure. And that is transverse fissure, lateral fissure. Now let's take a look at the ventricles of the brain. So if you dissect the brain, this part of the brain is not seen because what's inside is our cerebral fluid. So that's why we call it ventricle. So this is the lateral ventricle, the right one and the left one, anterior horn, posterior horn, inferior horn. And the space that is separating the left and the right, or connecting the left and right ventricle, we call it interventricular foramen. Over here, there's a third ventricle, so the lateral one, lateral two, and third ventricle, and the fourth ventricle at the bottom. The space over here is called the cerebral aqueduct. So now we take a look of this space, dura sinuses and dura folds. So first, this part is the falx cerebelli, and this is superior sinus, and this is inferior sinus, and this is straight sinus, and this is transverse sinus, and this part is tentorium cerebelli. So after the tentorium cerebelli, you have this space called confluence of sinuses. Let's take a look at the view from the sagittal plane. From here, this is the cingulate gyrus and corpus callosum, and this is the septum pellucidum. This is basically separating the left lateral ventricle and the right lateral ventricle, so it's kind of invisible after you dissect. Fornix and the choroid plexus of the third ventricle. This part is the epithalamus, the pink part. And the middle part is thalamus. This part is a hypothalamus. Start in the middle is interthalamus adhesion. And the front is called anterior commissure. The back is the posterior commissure. At the bottom of the epithalamus, this part is the pineal gland. And over here, you have the superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. And the one in the front is the optic chiasm and infundibulum. This part is cerebral peduncle, medulla oblongata. And this part is the pons of the brainstem. This is going to be the central canal. And vermis and folia. And anterior view, this is the cerebellar peduncle. And open it up from the mid-sagittal plane and see this arbor vitae. This is the olfactory and optic nerve, ocular motor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, facial, vestibulocochlear, and glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory, and hypoglossal. And here is olfactory, optic nerve, ocular motor nerve, and abducens, trigeminal nerve. This is facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve. This is glossopharyngeal, and vagus, spinal accessory, and hypoglossal.